unfolding this morning. Well, actually, they have been unfolding this week, and it's good to see everyone. In the area of agriculture, you may have heard just recently there was the introduction of a new ballot initiative, Initiative 16, which I'm actually going to pull up my notes here. The title of which is the Colorado Treatment of Animals Initiative, and this is actually, it strikes at that emotional chord of protect animals, and cruelty to animals sort of initiative. But the initiative goes straight at the heart of the agriculture community, and has a number of provisions, including specifically how the animals are treated. I'll talk a little bit about some of the provisions there. Adds fish to the definition of livestock, amends the definition of sexual act with an animal, and that pertains to the breeding of animals as well, and then defines the natural lifespan for certain animals in state law. Those are probably, that it may be one of the most offensive aspects of the proposal, which would require that you aren't allowed to slaughter an animal until he has lived at least a quarter of the natural lifespan of that animal. And to my understanding, that would be a 20-year-old a cow before they are able to be slaughtered for production. And I imagine you have similar time frames and lifespans for some of the larger animals. Those of you who are in the agriculture space would know a lot more about that, but the intent here, as you can see, is certainly to significantly undermine the agricultural industry in Colorado, and is yet another of the bizarre, crazy concepts coming forward, and masked, sadly, in a package that makes it far more appealing to the general public. And as we saw with the wolf introduction bill, there's such a disconnect by many in our state who live in the urban areas, disconnect with rural Colorado, and quite frankly, where their food comes from. So this initiative is very problematic. Weld County Commissioners just yesterday took a position to oppose. Ag community is lining up, as you can imagine, in opposition to this measure. I would put it quickly on our agenda at our next board meeting to take a position as well, so that we can begin our work and response. This is an initiative for 2022. It is not something that will be on the 21 ballot, because 21 ballots can only have tax-related measures, TABOR and tax-related measures. So it is a measure for 2022, but as you can imagine, the lead up to that will be not so pretty. I'd be certainly open to any comment or thoughts from our friends from Bill, Jerky, or Jamie, if you've heard anything, but certainly open to your perspectives as you've seen this lovely number unfold.
Just briefly, Sandra, I think the worst part of this provision is the having to go ahead and keep feeding an animal for a quarter of its potential life before ever going to harvest with the animal. This is from rabbits on up to cattle, everything in between. So for cows, 20 years, a quarter is 5 years, typically harvest the animal between 18 months and 2 years of life. So can you imagine trying to feed 3.5 more years of feed into an animal and still be competitive? And then what you harvest is no longer prime. It's very tough. So you just lose. And I can imagine that most ranchers would simply go ahead and sell their cattle out of state if that would be allowed. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's even allowed, though. Who knows what these people will come up with then.
I'm sure they'll find a way that it won't be allowed. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll second Bill's comments just to say a definite loud oppose from us. I thought I read an article as well that the governor even gave early comment about not being on board with this bill. And I don't know if I read that correctly, Sandra, but yeah, obviously the ag community not behind this. This would deeply impact a lot of aspects of what we stand for in Weld County. So
yeah, indeed. Again, I think the most troubling part of it, separate from the content, is the message. And again, the wraparound message that the proponents are utilizing about cruelty to animals. And again, we've got fortunately, we've got until 2022 to really do a number and educate as much as possible, again, with our friends in the ag industry about it. But that always gives me considerable pause. Our friends on the left have become very masterful in messaging and wrapping really bad ideas into language that sounds pretty awesome. So
it would be very interesting to go ahead, Bill.
Did you hear what you said? It would cause you considerable pause. PAUSE.
Yeah.
This is the pause amendment. Sorry.
oh didn't you Steve?
So it'd be really interesting to see what an analysis of what it would do to the price of beef and other meat products.
Stephen, it doesn't even allow us to be even close to competitive in the marketplace. It takes us out of production livestock agriculture.
Yeah.
Because you cannot go, even some of the common ranching practices that we use is still not clearly defined. And we use the term, first calf heifer, and you got 25% live birth assist that you're required to go and pull that calf. If you're not allowed to go and assist that heifer in calving, you're going to lose the calf and the heifer. And so who on earth is going to go and ranch in Colorado if they're not able to go and humanely take care of the livestock? So, it's a direct attack on livestock production within the state. And so, we got to take it on strong. So, when we bring it up for discussion next week, I'll say we're strongly opposed, and we'll get out and join every other ag organization in educating the public on the best practices that we use today in production livestock. And if anybody's gone and been around dairy cows, you certainly do not want to go naturally breed all your dairy cows, because the worst thing to deal with is a Holstein bull.
Yeah, indeed.
If you've ever been around them, they're the meanest things on earth. So, and that's why you AI all your dairy livestock.
Right. And again, the majority of our population has no connection to their land, to their food, and understanding of the way in which I've learned something new here a little bit about the lifespan of cattle. So there's just such a disconnect, and again, the stage is set such that we as an the ag industry is playing catch up to educate and to inform, a place that we shouldn't have to go, and the industry is being forced to go in that direction, sadly. Correlated to all of that, yesterday, Speaker Alec Garnett announced Republican Mark Catlin as the vice chair of the House Agriculture Committee, with Representative Arndt's departure from the legislature and as chairman of the House Agriculture Committee. She had actually recommended and asked the speaker to appoint him as chairman of the committee in her place. He did not go there, but did appoint him as vice chair. It is the first, according to Colorado Politics claims, and I certainly don't recall a time, but that this is the first time you've seen the minority party be appointed to a leadership post in the majority. Again, it's a somewhat of a sad statement. Happy that he did so, but it's a sad statement with respect to the depth of knowledge on the House Agriculture Committee. The new chairman is a 2 months freshman, and again, the depth of that committee is very limited with respect to agriculture. And so Colorado's legislature used to be, and I imagine Steve and Bill and Tom would certainly remember when this legislature was dominated by folks wearing, or not dominated, but there were a lot of rural, very ag understanding, if not directly involved in the industry, individuals, and the landscape legislatively has changed dramatically. So these continue to just be facets of the larger challenge that we are facing. Senate Bill 87, of course, is the ag bill related to agriculture farm workers. Bill and I are visiting with Garen Bray, who's the lobbyist for the Farm Bureau, to check in on status of the measure and see where more we can be helpful. With Representative Arndt's departure, she had been, adamantly opposed to the bill, and she is gone. We will check in to see current status. Senator Kerry Donovan remains in this quandary on the Senate side. The bill has not moved, and she is the ag chair on the Senate side and is running for Congress, of course. And so she's finding herself in a sticky wicket. She had been advocating for amendments to the bill rather than defeating the measure outright in order to walk a line. But we'll check in with Garen to see what the status is of those discussions, and if Representative Arndt left any good news behind as she left the building. So those are really key. That kind of wraps up ag. Again, a lot of activity in that space, and it's really unfortunate. And keep in mind, with respect to the ballot initiative, and Jamie, I had not seen the governor's any comments from the governor with respect to the initiative, and I'm hopeful that in fact he has made a statement about it. That would be great. His
35 miles an hour to get.
His fiance is a huge animal rights advocate, and again, either perhaps the proponents of this had hoped to spur a positive reaction. And again, I'm not sure what the dynamics are there, but that's something that we need to be mindful of. And we've seen it reflected in a couple of policies that have moved through the legislature, not so much ag related, but some other things. So just something to keep in mind. Wanted to also mention the end date of the legislature is becoming more clear. May 28th, which is the Friday before Memorial Day, if my understanding is correct, is the target date. They are leaving themselves a little bit of flexibility in case they run up and things start to stall out and they need the extra time. However, they intend to reserve days at the end of the 120 days, so leave themselves at least a week, if not 10 days, in order to come back in the fall to deal with the available funds coming from the federal government. They still have not received specific guidance with regard to how those monies are allowed to be spent. So they can't even do any real pre-work, or pre-work meaning passing some directive or specific legislation ahead of their adjournment. So still awaiting that news. Again, the Build Back Stronger plan was Build Back Stronger listening tour that many of you participated in was working under the broad framework of one-time dollars and pretty open with respect to how the dollars should be spent. So again, that guidance will be essential to make final determinations as to how the monies will be spent, and we'll more than likely then have that conversation in the fall with the available time. The decision was made to go in that direction because rather than a full adjournment, they could certainly adjourn early, but if they recess, they reserve those days. It removes authority, quite frankly, from the governor to call the special session and define the parameters, even in the way in which the dollars will be spent. So the Joint Budget Committee asked leadership to ensure that full flexibility and full authority was resides with the legislature in terms of the spending of those funds. So, so that's good news. At least we have an end date. So we've got about 5 weeks left before the end of the session, and still some measures yet to be introduced. As we know, the transportation bill has not yet been introduced, and it continues to wane, and there's continues to be a whole lot of tug and pull on that. At our fixed North I-25 Business Alliance meeting last week, the group agreed that we need to really sort of continue pushing on, maybe this thing is best to just go away. The way in which it's currently structured, again, as I think I've shared with you, the benefit to the state is pretty nominal relative to the total take and fee generation and the general fund piece. There's obligations upon CDOT that really draw down the overall benefit. So we've moved to a place of, unless this thing dramatically shifts, there ought to be now is not the time. If this is just not, we're trying to find a thread a needle that just isn't threadable at this point, trying to satisfy too many folks. And it's interesting, I had Will Tour and I had a conversation at the Capitol a couple of days ago. And of course, he is being pulled in the opposite direction that a Shoshana Liu will be being pulled with respect to putting more monies into transit, more monies into mobility. And so he's being pulled. Just yesterday, a report was issued by the Rocky Mountain Institute, which is a very progressive and quite aggressive environmental group. They released a report about the importance of, if you will, of investing in transit and a whole host of alternative modes besides investing in roads. It is pretty, the report, and Tom has, if Tom's on the phone, I don't think he's on the phone this morning. It's pretty remarkable, it's portrayed as something that's quite conclusive. It uses uses data from out of California and applies it and attempts to apply it to Colorado, and is very problematic. Shoshana shared with me a letter that she sent back to the advocates, proponents, the drafters of this report, RMI, and expressed significant, I would just say she's pretty pissed about the report. And there will be a story. Joey Bunch is doing a follow-up story to the reports released yesterday. He asked for my input, so I'll be quoted in there as well, talking about, I make reference to the fact that congestion mitigation, because obviously the report is layered in the whole reduction of greenhouse gas and air quality and that sort of, again, narrative. My comment was congestion mitigation is actually a significant, important component to the reduction of greenhouse gas initiatives. And furthermore, the modes themselves that are being promoted by the advocates here, bus, EVs and the like, require roads. So there's complete disconnect on the part of the RMI folks around what solutions are. Additionally, we've had some quick conversation with an AWF to do some polling. We've had, as you know, we've had sort of in the wings our pollster to jump into some polling with respect to transportation, to check in with regard to the spending side of the equation. There hasn't been a catalyst, if you will, to say, all right, now's the time. This has become an opportunity to really demonstrate and to counteract that movement. And so we'll be discussing with a pollster, a Dem pollster, today about getting into the field, presenting information around the spend side of this equation, couple it with what's referred to as a trip report that actually speaks to the costs of not investing. So cost to you and me of not investing in roads and your car damage and the like. So we're responding in a way that I think will be actually quite beneficial in furthering the broader conversation about we need to get back to the basics, which is investing in roads, and that's the direction that we're headed with respect to response to the current framework as it is. So there's that. Let's see what else. Don't expect that bill to be introduced anytime soon. Again, we've got 5 weeks left in this legislative session and time is running out on that deal. So I think our preference is that time run out, because the structure is not conducive to good investment in roads at this juncture. We also, from transportation, the Front Range Rail is a full new Front Range Rail district. Last week, the board took a position to oppose the formation of a district. We had conversation at our subcommittee meeting on Friday about how we respond and what we do with that opposed position. And we will be offering amendments that help to make it more difficult for a district to proceed, I guess, and to be successful. Our concerns, if you recall, are competitive dollars with the formation of a district, and new innovative modes are not taken into account. The future is not really considered with respect to technologies and the like. And then furthermore, the eventual creation of bedroom communities in our key urban areas that should be amplified with people versus sort of drawing into the metro area. So more there. We're meeting Senator Scott, who's a member of the Transportation Committee where this bill will be heard next week, has agreed to carry any amendments that we develop. We'll have subcommittee meetings either today or tomorrow to dive into what we believe would be appropriate structure of that amendment. Okay, let's see. Senate Bill 200 is also a bill that we took a position on last week. Senate Bill 200 is the bill that codifies the renewable energy standards and the greenhouse gas reduction roadmap, codifies in law all of those standards, and you have it builds upon 1261, actually codifies 1261 from 2019, which set these laudable goals for reductions in greenhouse gas. And the sponsors took the bill. The bill was heard on Tuesday, and 6.5 hours of testimony. And the bill was passed. What's notable was the interchange and the exchange between Will Tour and the sponsors of the bill. Sort of a D on D fight, if you will. It was fascinating, with the administration, who was opposed to the measure, saying and arguing that they are doing everything under a good faith standard to accomplish the goal on renewable energy and the reduction of greenhouse gas that they have. While what was fascinating was there was an acknowledgement that there is not legal authority for much of the regulatory direction that they have been utilizing, particularly in the transportation space, but that once regulations are put in place, those have the effect of law, and so consequently there are legal standards. So there has been, and we have in a number of the regulatory hearings, we, alongside some others, particularly Weld County, have noted that and questioned in the greenhouse gas, particularly in the greenhouse gas related to transportation and some of the other provisions, that what's your authority? What's your foundation? The roadmap itself was built out of a collaborative between the Colorado Energy Office, CDPHE, and Department of Transportation. Certainly under the guise or pointing to House Bill 1261, but ultimately not with specific direction or legal authority. So it was fascinating to hear Will Tour and the sponsors themselves both acknowledge that legal authority doesn't exist. Now, the purpose behind 200 is to actually provide that legal authority, which would undermine our continued sort of, shift some of that argument. So the dynamic between the Democrats on this one is pretty remarkable. And after a 45-minute exchange, very heated exchange between Will Tour and the sponsors, again, and followed by hours of testimony in opposition testimony from utilities, all the utilities, Platte River Power opposed, unions, the business community, of course, we joined in that, counties, the county commissions as well. The bill did pass on a 4-3 vote, with one of the members, Zenzinger, indicating that she was a yes for now. The bill goes to Finance Committee, where we will see if we can't take care of the bill altogether and just defeat it. So some exciting drama to watch with the Democrats. I was just fascinated by that. Let's see. Ag bill, I'm sorry, we talked about ag bills, tax bills. Again, we've been awaiting the tax bill introduction, and it appears that there are two. We're hearing that there could be two bills, but there's real reluctance on the part of the speaker to have those bills drop. Again, as I've mentioned before, the impetus, the sort of the pressure on the reasoning behind the changes to the to tax credits, tax incentives, has been removed by virtue of the stimulus dollars and the utilization of those to draw down the negative factor in education. So again, that pressure no longer exists, and so there's some question as to whether or not those bills will be introduced. We still haven't seen them, and sort of a wait and see. So that kind of sums up.
Andrew, where's the public option at this point?
Public option is it's still awaiting committee. We understand that there is a rewrite coming from Representative Roberts, the sponsor of the measure, and there continues to be efforts to have these conversations, and Carol probably knows a whole lot more about status, but there have been ongoing conversations. There's been stalemate at points, and again, Representative Roberts was going back to the drawing board to see what he could put out there. I think in a strike below approach, but I'm not terribly confident of that, if it's just rewriting significant portions of the measure or if it's a full rewrite. I don't know if Carol's on the line and can share. If she happens to know, it doesn't look like she's on. So that's the current, nothing happening there. 176 is also stalled. The employer discrimination bill, that is also stalled, which is a good sign. Sponsors continue to try to figure out what the heck they're doing with that bill. So yeah, that's where we are, which, you know, again, the fact that some of these things are stalled is, you know, commend the business community for being unified in and strong in their opposition in order to make moving forward with crazy ideas very uncomfortable. So whether it's the ag bill, 176, public option, being firm and united in our opposition as a business community, we're finally learning how to get that done after, you know, now the third year in a trifecta environment. So yeah, any quick questions?
Sandra, I had to step out for just 1 second here for a conversation, so I apologize if I missed it. Where do things sit on public option at this moment? Maybe you said already, so my apologies.
Yeah, they are, the sponsors are going back to the drawing board to rewrite components of it at a minimum, possibly a full rewrite. But my understanding is they've effectively come to, they being the hospitals and the healthcare folks who are really driving the opposition, we're playing a supporting role, that there's been stalemates, and I was a little surprised to hear that Roberts has said, you know, I'll try to rework it. I mean, he's working overtime to try to get to a yes on this bill, and again, he's rewriting major components of it, and possibly it could be a full strike below, but at a minimum, the rewrites of some significant portions of it. And thank you again, Jamie, for testifying. I don't know if I had noted your you're staying on the line for a long time to testify on behalf of NCLA. What was that? A week and a half ago?
Yeah, no,
Tell us, Laura.
I was happy to do it, and I was happy to hear the next day from a few of the hospital administrators. They were back at the table. That's our goal, right? So
Yeah, indeed.
So Sandra, before we close, I want to compliment our board members. I think we have 17 or 18 board members on the call, which is really good. And also for our Chamber Alliance partners who've joined us this morning. I think it's great.
Yeah. Bill Jerky raised his hand.
What day is final for this year?
I think the talk is May 28th.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. So good to see you all. And
Sandra, it looks like
Yeah,
Bill
hi,
Becker
Mickey.
and Tom have their hands raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Tom?
Yes, the thing that I'm a couple of things that in the bill for the rail district, I think it's extremely important to get an amendment that relates to local vote on tax that would be administered by the district, so that there's not just like a 2 or 3 mil levy on all property throughout the district that will take valuable dollars out of the ability to fund other programs. So I just think that amendment is particularly important.
Agreed.
The other thing that I was interested in was trying to put forth a communications effort on transportation. I'd like to see a unified effort between the transportation groups that we've been associated with to do some direct education through the media, and so I'd like to bring that up when we get a chance to visit about how are we going to move forward with this, because I think even if they don't introduce it, we have an opportunity to talk about what transportation really is about. And I don't know, I just think we need to consider that and figure the dollars it would take to do an all-out media campaign about transportation.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. And we'll on both fronts, we'll continue those conversations. You should have in your inbox. We'll have a further conversation on diving into the nuance with respect to the amendment to the Front Range Rail bill.
Okay, can I mention something about water now?
Oh, thank you,
Yeah.
Bill. Darn it. I'm sorry. Jump in, please.
Yeah, some of
I
you may have already
apologize,
seen the story. The Chimney Hollow suit has been settled. The new judge ordered mediation between Northern and the 5 or 6 environmental groups. When they all went into the room, it caught Northern by surprise when the environmental folks offered to settle and end their suit for $15 million. The backstory in this is that the money would be contributed over time to the Community Foundation of Grand County, the equivalent to our Northern and foundations up here. The disbursement of those funds would be jointly made by 3 representatives from the environmental groups and 3 representatives from Northern. And the purpose that Northern required was so that they didn't take any of that money and put it toward fighting or paying for lawsuits for other stopping dam projects and so forth. When this was presented to the Northern board, you can imagine that a lot of the old guard get really stuck in their craw to have to do this. But the bottom line for Northern was that when they worked with their contractor, he told them that if you went the whole year on this, and they would likely win, but it would take a year, the cost additional would be $30 million. So they made the right business decision. They will plan to break ground in summer, and things are moving forward. So it's good news. It's 15 million, but it will be spread out over X number of years and distributed through a legitimate foundation in Grant County. Okay. And one other quick thing, I don't like turning on my cynical spigot so early in the morning, but I sat in on the latest listening session. Tari was on there too last night with the E-Trip folks. The dialogue is still the same. They have their mind made up. I don't envision that they're listening to anything in a meaningful way. The thing I heard new last night was that they're going to extend what they call the cut points. When you get your emissions test, any vehicle 11 years old or more is going to require a 240-second test as opposed to something like 75 or 1, something for where it is now. And they anticipate that while they on average now have 27,000 vehicles that fail, that number with the new test will go up to 47,000, and they'll be required to make the repairs. And for those that don't have adequate funds, they're hoping that they can find money in the state to supplement and pay for the repairs on these poor people's cars that are going to be not able to be registered. So that was the only new piece on it. And come August, when they do the final rulemaking, I would be more than surprised if there wasn't anything other than just a blanket, yes, done, go for it. So that's my cheery note to end with.
Well, and not if we have anything.
Sandra,
I will say thank you, Bill, for that report on water and the E-Trip stuff, and certainly not if we have anything to do with it. We're ramping up a strategy to engage real quick before even the May determination as to whether to proceed with rulemaking that will then set us, if they are to decide that in fact they are proceeding, we will have at least set the stage for a very proactive response to the rulemaking. And the unfortunate thing, as Bill pointed out, is they are blending essentially at least two, if not three rulemakings all into three rulemakings all into one large rulemaking. It just further complicates matters, and it's advantageous. What was also fascinating in the conversation on Senate Bill 200 was the reveal in a number of places that Will Tour made with respect to their, in justifying and defending their plan, he revealed a number of additional things that they will pursue to yet further reduce greenhouse gas in other areas. So we are far from done in this space, and a strong stand on E-Trip and the transportation sector from the business community. My hope is that they will or hopefully maybe see that maybe they can't get away with some of this so easily and so in a rubber stamp fashion. But we have our work cut out for us in just mounting that type of campaign and working in coalition with our other business friends in the metro and within the rest of the non-attainment space. So it's happening everywhere. It's crazy.
Sandra,
yes.
Donna Carlson has a question regarding vacation rentals.
Hi, Donna.
Hey, Sandra. I posted it in the chat. Our Vacation Rental Council in Estes Park has been uncovering some kind of word on street on things that are happening at the county level and things that change zoning and possible county assessor movement on tax increases for vacation rental owners. And I'm just wondering what kind of advocacy efforts are in play in defense of vacation rental owners.
So they generally the NCLA doesn't dive into the county level matters, but the individual chambers do. And maybe, and I know that Ann and Mindy have great relationships with the commissioners themselves. So my apologies that I don't know more. Again, we often don't dive into that level as an NCLA. However, we will do regional as sort of the lowest that we'll dive. But we, knowing that issue for us is really good to keep it in mind, because perhaps it can spell a trend and a movement happening again in the region and the like. I don't know if Ann or Mindy have any insights to what Donna is referring to, if you've heard anything unfolding at the county.
I have not heard anything yet, but I will reach out to them today to find out. And Donna, I think Ann just posted in the comments
Okay, yeah,
to connect with
Awesome.
Kevin Jones in her office.
Yeah.
good. It's
Perfect.
likely to apply to Estes Park more than anyone else, but we don't have any
Yep.
staff members on advocacy, so.
Yeah, no, of course. And we're happy. I appreciate your bringing it up, and we're all in this together. So
thank
you bet. You bet. Anything else from anyone?
Rich has his hand up.
Hey, Rich. Why am I not seeing this? My apologies. Hi, Rich.
Hi, just one quick thing. I did hear some discussions yesterday that Representative Hugh McKean's hydro bill
Mhm.
was, excuse the pun, getting watered down. And that it was basically making it nothing more than a token concept of hydro usage. And, you know, not to be sarcastic, but keeping up with the theme of our discussion this morning, you know, I think if any electricity is involved or any building is involved in hydro, then it's not allowed. So if you could just check in on that and maybe get back
Thank you.
to us on the next meeting. It sounds like that bill's in trouble.
I appreciate that. I thought it had actually passed, was on its way to the governor's office. But let me double check that. Let me double check that. Thanks for the heads up. Anything else? Perfect.
Well, like I mentioned, thanks to everybody for joining the meeting. I think it's been great and great attendance. So thank you all for joining us today.
Great. Nice to see you all. Have a fantastic day. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.